Hi everyone! I just wanted to tell you today about how to tune your violin. Now that we're all at home, I'm not able to tune your violin when it comes time for lessons. So hopefully I'll give you some hints and tips that you'll be able to tune it at home, preferably before a lesson. Make sure that your violin is at least really close to being in tune. It'll make a big difference in how you sound. So the first thing I do, I use a free app. It's called Tuner Lite. So Tunerlite, and it's a free app. I love free apps, and it just looks like this, or you can get different screen colors to it. But what the basics of it is you are going to press this fork button, and you can see right now it's highlighted in green. But what I want to do is I want to press this button right here. So right now the tuner's not on, but as soon as you hit this, that means that it's listening for sound. So then I'm going to play a note, and what I want to hear happen is I want to see the note light up the green button in the middle. Let me show you how that works. So that is a perfect A. And that A, so I play the A string first. It's called A4. You'll see it says A with a little number after that. That's 4. That refers to what octave it's in. So A4, and I want it to be that green button in the middle. If either of the red dots are lit up, that means it's either too high or too low. So if it's not right, then we have to fix it here. So what we do first is we play our A. We try to get a green dot on the A. That's great. Now we're going to play the D, which is also D4. You can see mine is right about, it's green, but the arrow's a little bit too far to the side. So I would adjust that. Now, you guys, most of you should have fine tuners, these little pegs down here. I only have one. Standard professional violins just have one, but most beginner violins have at least 4, or at least 2, between 2 and 4. So with you guys, what I would want you to do is turn that slightly. For me, I have to turn one of these big pegs. Now the pegs, you have to be careful you don't tune too far, because that's what can cause a string to break. But what I would do is I would just tune it. And I'm looking at my little tuner here to make sure that it gets on the green. So then you do your G string. Now the G is G3. That's the G that we're looking for. And then the last one you do is the E string. We always do the E last because it's the most sensitive, the one we want to make sure is absolutely in tune. And it's asking me if I want to rate it, which I don't want to do. So that's a perfect E. Now, what would happen if my E wasn't perfect? Let me try to show this for you guys. Oh, it's showing really flat or low. Flat is too low, sharp is too high. So that's showing see that arrow's way over here. It's way off. So what I need to do, if I want to make it higher, and sometimes you don't know if you want to go higher or lower, you just got to try both ways. But usually you can see the little lines in there to tell you which way to go. So if I want to go higher, it's kind of like lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. When a string gets tighter, it gets higher. Same with like if you're pulling a rubber band, if you're plucking a rubber band, the tighter you make it, the higher the sound. That's how sound waves work. When it has less wiggle room, it moves faster, and that makes it higher. So lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, looking at it like that. So if I want to make it higher, I have to turn this peg kind of like if you're looking at the top, away from my nose. And you have to keep a really steady bow when you do this. That's probably the hardest part, is making sure that you keep a steady bow, because if I go, let's see if I can show you. If you're looking at this and I start slow and then go fast, watch what happens. It actually got higher because I was moving my bow faster. Also, if you do this kind of thing, it's not even picking up that it's an E at all. So that's why we need to go really smooth, just smooth long bows. So then we would turn it, if we need to make it higher, we turn that way. If we need to make it lower, play around with it, see how it sounds. Get back to my E there. So that is the beginner's how to tune. Basics of tuning. Using an app like this makes it super easy. Also, if you have a real tuner, if you have like an actual tuner, maybe it clips on, maybe it sits on the table, that's totally fine too. You will notice though that it says exactly how many hertz to have it as. That's Hz, abbreviated Hz. That's a scientific term. So when you see hertz, you want that number to be 442. It's okay if it's 440 or 441, but between 440 and 442 is where we want that. I do 442. That's how I prefer it, but if you do 440, 441, it's very close. So you have A4, D4, G3, E4. If you get to go play and your peg is just completely dead, if you're like, okay, A is good, and your D is like that or something bad, then you're going to have to use the peg. I like to grip with my hand on the scroll, and I'm going to look at my tuner to see how high I need when it says D4. There I'm at D4. So that's how I'm going to do that to find, that's how I'm going to find that note if my peg has maybe completely slipped. The most important thing I say the most important a lot, really important thing to do is don't turn a peg unless you're moving your bow. Because you may think, oh, it's just a little bit, or even a fine tuner. Oh, I just need a little bit, and you turn it, and then you come back to here. You have no idea what to counteract, like how to balance that. You might go way too high. You might lose track of where you are. It's always good if you can keep the bow hand playing, and then use your left hand to move these as necessary. If you are going to do one at a time, very tiny increments. Just turn it just a little tiny bit. So that is the basics, hopefully some FAQs of tuning. Now, if you feel good about that, if you feel like, yes, I can tune my violin like that, then you can stop the video and go tune your violin. Obviously, if you have any questions, please text me or call me or email me. I will be definitely able to answer any questions that you might have, anything I may have missed. Now I'm going to talk about advanced violin tuning. So when you see, if you ever go to the symphony, they don't have one of these. They're not checking every measurement to see, oh, okay, how is this? They do it all by ear, and there's a way that happens. So, bye to all of you who are just good at tuning like that, maybe tuning for the first time, learning how to tune your violins. Good luck. I know you'll do great with this. Now we're going to talk about advanced. So what you have to do, you still have to tune your A. The A is the most important, and the reason why the A goes first, there are kind of a lot of reasons for it, but I would say the most important reason is that that's kind of the note that most instruments share in common. So if you were at with an actual symphony, an oboe would play it first. So the oboes have it, clarinets have it, strings have it, all strings have an A. Actually, I don't know about double bass, but I know most strings have an A. It's an accessible note for even the woodwinds and brass who work differently than we do. They don't have the same kind of notes as we do. Sometimes they even read notes really wackily, but they all have A's, pretty accessible A's. So that's why we use A. So whether you using your tuner app or tuning else to somebody else who has a really good A, you're going to make sure that you have a good A. So you're going to listen. And you're going to want the sound. You want the sound to be to the point that you don't know whether it's in tune or not, because it sounds exactly the same. So if I'm listening to somebody else play and I'm feeling this and I'm moving it, I want to get to the point that I'm like, I can't really hear them. Not because I'm playing loudly, because I should be playing kind of softly, but because they're the exact same note. That's when you know you have a good tune. Now, actually, fun fact here, you can't just tune all your strings to somebody else that way. A lot of high school orchestras do that because that's what they have to do. But actually, every violin has, or every instrument has its own sound. So if I know that I'm perfectly in tune with my A with you, being perfectly in tune to your E might not be my E, might be completely different. Or at least not completely different, but a little bit different. So we want to be as exact as possible. Now, another thing I have to talk about when talking about this is you're listening to perfect fifths. Perfect fifth is an interval. It's 5 notes. So like for instance, this G down low. The next note is a D, right? G, A, B, C, D. That's a fifth. D to A would be D, E, F, G, A. That's your 5. So just like that, we have a fifth. Now, the perfect fifth is synonymous with, like, it's such a great interval because sometimes, again, like tuning, you can't tell if it's an octave or it's a perfect fifth or if it's in unison because they sound so alike. And that actually has to do with the way the sound waves move. They kind of move in conjunction when you're playing a perfect fifth. If you want to know more about how sound waves work, feel free to text me. They're really fascinating. It can get a little bit complicated, but something you might learn in school or you might have learned in school that is really quite interesting. The way that the size of the waves and the amplitude of that make quite a difference. It can really help us when we're tuning. So when we're playing a fifth together, they should sound perfectly in tune. So that's actually the matter of the hertz. The actual number of the hertz is the same. But if you have 1 hertz off, you're going to have 1 off pulse per second. If you're 2 hertz off, you're going to have 2 off pulses per second. And the more off pulses you get, the worse it sounds. So I'm going to play for you 2 notes that are not in tune. Now my A, we already checked my A is in tune, but I just messed up my D. When I play these are not in tune. It's actually kind of offensive to the ear. Now, I'm going to slowly move my peg up as I play. I went too far. I did it very slowly. I was listening, but I went too far. Now we're going to go down. Went slightly too low there, so we're going to try that again. I want you guys to hear hear when it's not right, because then when you hear when it's right, it's like a light bulb moment. Now that's pretty well in tune. It may be messed up because of the YouTube, so try it at home if you're really brave enough to try this, moving the pegs. Try it at home and see, because I can tell a lot of times the recordings aren't really making sense. But I'm going to do that one more time so you guys can hear. I'm going to go from wrong and I'm going to fish around until I find a spot when it's really peaceful. There are no extra pulses in the sound. That's really close. That's right on. If you were really close, what I meant to say, if you were really close, then you could use your fine tuners to finish it off all the way. So then I would do the same thing with my G and D strings. I'm going to throw my G off here so you can hear. That one was pretty fast. And then with my E string, I use my fine tuner still. Such a big difference when you hear that awful sound to suddenly fresh sound. So that's how professionals tune their violins. That's how when you see a symphony happening, everybody's listening to their own violin. My D's a little bit off there, but that's how they would tune. That's how they would hear it. They would be listening for those perfect fifths. If you don't get it on your first try, that's fine. It takes a little bit of practice, a lot of playing to know what those fifths sound like. You actually get to the point that you can really easily pick up, oh, that's an A, that's a D. Being able to pick up those open strings definitely helps. Then when you put it together, you're able to make the connection a lot easier. Sometimes, especially when you're first starting, it can seem like just picking a note out of midair. And it can definitely be that way if you don't really know what you're listening for. So that's how I would tune. I still always start with my A, with my tuner Lite. That's how I do that personally. If you have a different app, different metronome, that's totally fine. If you're tuning to somebody else, just to recap, you would tune your A's together, and then you'd each tune your other strings on their own. It's not terrible if you tune your other strings to somebody, but do make sure that they're in tune first. You want to make sure that they're really in tune. The other thing is, I would recommend when you're doing this method, when you're doing the perfect fifths method, when you're done, check it against your tuner. Put your tuner on and check to make sure that you have A4, D4, G3, E4. Making sure that you have those guys in there, because that's just a great way to double check. And you might be wrong. You might be a little bit off. You might be way off. That's fine. Just keep practicing it. Practicing never hurts. If you have a peg that's stuck, this is one thing that happens quite frequently, especially in the winter time, which hopefully we're getting out of. But if you have a peg that's stuck and it just won't turn, don't force it. Sometimes they can get really dry, or with the cold air constricting and contracting with those guys, they can get a little bit messed up. If you have that situation, let me know. There's a little compound that you can put on that'll loosen that up and get that back in no time, or we can wait till we see each other to fix that. But this is the advanced side of tuning. There's really not a step above this. If you know how to tune your violin this way, it can be very quick, very efficient, and definitely kind of that top level of what you're going for. So good luck. Let me know if you have any questions or any problems. And never experiment, never try to tune your violin to a different spot in what it's not supposed to be. Tuning down is okay, but tuning up, you will definitely break a string. So always be cautious about that. Even if you're trying it out for the very first time and you're really scared, just throw on a pair of glasses and you'll be fine. I have broken strings while tuning before with bad strings, and I've never hurt myself. It's not really that big of a deal. Just be careful. Don't crank it up. That's never a good idea because there's only so far they can stretch. There's only so far they were built to stretch. And as long as you know what notes you're aiming for, again, G4, D4, no, A4, D4, G3, E4. In that order is typically the order that you do it in. As long as you know what you're going for, you should be fine. So have a good night, and I will talk to you soon.